Hello everyone, I hope you're all good. I have got another plant styling video lined up for you today, and it's one that I'm super excited about. So I've been seeing lots of really gorgeous plant arranging ideas popping up recently, and it's just made me think about all of the things that I can mix up in my own home in order to make it feel really cozy but really quirky and really cool, and obviously keep my plants happy as well. So yeah, today I thought I would take you through all of those ideas and show you how you can start to implement them in your own collections, whether you've got 2 plants or 200 plants. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And so yeah, I really hope you find this video useful and I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. I lit a candle to try and make it feel nice and cozy when I was filming this video, but actually it just looks like I've got a wine bottle in shot, which is not the vibe I was going for. So let's put it there. It looks all right there. But I have made various Pinterest boards for today's video and I'm going to take you through some of the highlights. I will also link everything down below. A lot of these are not my ideas, so credit to the people that have taken these pictures and come up with these things. As I say, everything will be linked below. But the first one is a bit of a weird one, and I don't know what else to call it apart from sparse, raggedy plants vibe. That's what I've called it. And I've seen this pop up in various kind of interior design magazines. Like, it's a very much a vibe. It's very much kind of like the minimal look. And I don't necessarily mean like actual minimalism, but it's definitely designed to look a certain way and it feels very classy. And whenever I look at these kind of like sparse raggedy plants, often they're dracaenas and stuff like that. And it's funny because as a planty person that has also obviously got an interest in interior design but primarily is just crazy plants everywhere kind of person, I find it very funny that those are the kind of plants that are often made out to be like the thing of interest, because I don't know about you guys, but there's been multiple points as a planty person that I have tried to hide plants like that in my collection. If they get very leggy, if they get very sparse, I kind of go, okay, well, let's tuck them behind loads of other things and no one will notice them. And actually it's quite cool to see them, I guess, kind of like championed and made into these big kind of statement plants, even if they are very bare. And I found that interesting, and I did a little bit of digging into why that was, that the kind of it had so much effect. And from what I could find in kind of interior design terms is that because it feels very intentional, it also helps to create quite a lot of negative space, which often kind of tricks your brain into thinking that you're seeing art instead of necessarily just a plant. So it's almost used in the same way as like a really kind of, I don't know, a weird sculpture would be. And if you look at some of the plants that are commonly displayed in this way, as I say, there's lots of dracaenas and stuff like that, which can grow very weirdly, like they're very bendy and curvy and kind of unpredictable. And it feels intentional without feeling like you've put in loads of effort. And I just think this is a really great styling tip for people that maybe can't have loads of plants or don't want to worry about having like the perfect looking plants, because it's like, cool, showcase your weird ones, and it really works. The one thing that I've noticed with the ones that I've put on the Pinterest board here is that they are all, or most of them are kind of placed with, as I say, very minimal decor. And this is obviously not to say that you need to do this. You also should not be aiming for your house to look like a Pinterest board. I've just lifted various ideas that I like. But yeah, everything that they're kind of paired with is very neutral. It's kind of very beige and very white. And although I think that works because it does draw your eye towards the plant more, I also totally think that you could pair something weird and wonderful with just kind of a more quirky aesthetic in your home and have the same effect. The thing as well that I am just really enjoying about these kind of plants is they've got so much character, and especially in the weird kind of social media world that we live in, there is always, even if we don't talk about it, there is always that kind of unspoken pressure for everything to be so perfect and so aesthetic, and like, oh my goodness, your plant has a rip in its leaf, chop that leaf off. And obviously we're not all like that, but this just really feels like it's embracing the weird and wonderful without trying to make it anything else, which I really enjoy. I think realistically for me, this standalone as we see it pictured here would be quite difficult to achieve in my space, purely for the fact that I have got so many plants. I'm definitely up for getting some more weird and wonderful ones like that, or I guess I'm potentially just showcasing my ones that aren't looking as great a little bit more. But in terms of the kind of clean aesthetic, I don't think that's something that pairs very well with the jungle that I've built. But it also, I think, is just a fantastic trend. Is it a trend? I'm going to call it a trend, but I don't know if that's the right way of putting it. Trendy thing to see at the moment when we live in a world of so much consumerism and like, oh my goodness, you must have hundreds of plants. And like, again, I know I do, but it's really lovely to see these things kind of being championed and showcased in a way that also shows that you can make something really, really cool with just one weird plant without having to have like an entire shelf filled with them. It can make just as much impact is what I think I'm saying. So yeah, that's one that I absolutely love. And then another one that I already use in my home but would love to do more of is using plants to frame things. And obviously the first pictures that I've saved here are of plants framing windows. And if you don't have curtains, for example, it can be a really lovely way of just adding, I guess, something a little bit delicate to otherwise quite a harsh, like blocky shape. It also, as I've said before in other styling videos, helps to just kind of bridge the gap between the indoors and the outdoors. If you have got plants in your windows, it just helps everything to just feel like it's merged nicely and just softens things, which I really, really like. Pothos plants, Epipremnum, these are in so many of the pictures here. Actually, I didn't realise how many there were, but those are plants that are super cheap to buy. They are easy to grow, they're fast to grow. You can just get one as a cutting and in no time at all, it'll be a lovely plant that you can easily train. And as I say, I do this in various areas of my house. But the other thing that I really love with the kind of framing idea is things like framing doorways, like looking at some of the ones here. I just think it just helps to really define, it's almost like having a beam in that space, you know? It kind of helps to define the journey from one space to the other without, again, it feeling like you're going through a doorway. It's almost like you're going through a beautiful magical archway or something. It just, I mean, I know it is bringing the outdoors indoors, but it just really feels kind of like your home is a botanical garden, which I love. I would love to do more of this in my own home. I'm just looking at the door frame above me here that has got space for a shelf above it, and I'm like, should I try and do something like that? Because it looks beautiful. The other thing that I said as well when I was living at the flat is that you can actually train plant vines to help kind of just establish certain areas in your home. For example, if you've got a big open plan living room, for example, like I did at the flat, I would use plant vines to kind of almost like separate the spaces. I'll put some clips in so I can show you, but I would almost use plant vines to be like, this is the dining area, now this is the living room, and it would make everything feel connected and like separate spaces, but also open, still very open. So yeah, I love that idea. I think like training vines in general just helps to add so much movement to a space. It's really easy to do. I've said it before, I use the kind of twist and stick clips. I'll link them down below. You literally just stick them onto the wall. I'm pretty sure they're renter friendly. I have scraped them off many a wall in my time and it's been fine. So yeah, they're just a really good solution. They hold everything in place. But of course you don't need to do it with training vines in itself. I'm just looking at a little doorway, beautiful big doorway here that someone's put box shelves around, and they've kind of filled it with kind of trinkets, ornaments, and loads of greenery. And again, I mean, what a practical storage solution, but also something that you can use to just really, really define a room and make it so interesting to look at. Like, that is something you don't see very often. And I'm just looking at that, and I'm not a massive DIY person, but I'm just kind of thinking like you could probably get some secondhand or some fairly cheap and cheerful IKEA shelves or something like that, take away your door if you didn't want an actual door, and just create a beautiful pass-through. Again, my brain is whizzing about ways that I can do this at my own house. But a lot of the time, I just think these things are so effective, yet actually they are very, very simple. And there is just something about having plants in a space in that way that just makes everything feel, I guess, just feel well thought out and intentional, but without being placed, just quite natural. And like, you know, when you walk into some people's houses and they're just like, oh my goodness, it's like you haven't even tried. I'm sure they have, but it just feels very effortless and very kind of ethereal yet grounded, which I love. And then obviously framing mirrors as well. This is something I really love. Again, it's something I do a lot. And I have again spoken about mirrors before. You can use them for all sorts of trickery in your plant collection. You can use them to reflect light in order to make spaces feel bigger. You can use them instead of using grow lights if you position them in the right way. And also you can actually cheat how many plants you have, because if you put a mirror right next to your plants and you see your plants reflected in that, it's gonna feel like you've got double the amount. So for example, a lot of the ones that we're seeing in these pictures here, you can see leaves kind of trailing round the edge of the mirror, but the leaves that you see reflected probably aren't even there, they're probably just a reflection. So if you've got like one very sparse vine, for example, maybe training that to go around there would be a way of making it feel less sparse and actually adding more greenery to your space without having to get a bigger, thicker, bushier plant, you know? Again, you could just pop a little propagation at the base of the mirror and just kind of train it to climb round. I just think it's lovely, really, really lovely. Again, looking at this one here in the hallway, I just think what a beautiful entry space to come into without feeling like you've placed too many plants there. Again, I think that's been the thing for me as a planty person that also really wants to try and make my house look lovely, is that I would love my plants not to feel styled. I would always love people to come in and be like, oh, what a cool room. Oh my God, you've got so many plants. But it not feel like I've been like, I am going to put that plant there and I am going to like, I don't know, do you know what I mean? It's just kind of happening and they're just kind of there, and it is all obviously very intentional, but yeah, I think that just is very effective. And then next I've got gallery walls, and I have saved so many ideas on beautiful gallery walls that you can do with plants. I personally love the look of putting plants into vintage frames. I think it is so unusual. I think it just draws your eye in the way, kind of like we were saying at the beginning about making plants into art. It kind of just draws your eye to the beauty of them in a way that doesn't feel like you're just looking at something in a pot. Like, as you can see, a lot of these are kind of propagations or growing hydroponically. And again, it's just a really inventive, creative way to repurpose things that you might already have. Like if you've got some frames that you're not really doing anything with, or you want to revamp in some way, or even make your own frames. I personally always go, we've got a great local charity shop, and honestly at this point I just live in there. I find so many great frames, so many just interesting things to kind of make artsy craftsy stuff with. And yeah, just having plants mixed in with, like, I love them mixed in with art as well. I think it just adds lots of interest. Having a wall of stuff that isn't just flat, I don't know what it is about that. It feels like having stuff kind of popping out at you, just, I don't know, it kind of steers it away from like the cliche gallery wall. And obviously it's your home, do what you want. I've got gallery walls in my house that me and Ross have created, but I don't know, there's just something about having a little bit of like greenery popping out that just makes it very quirky and interesting. And the older I get, and probably now that I've actually got my own house to be able to kind of play with things, the more I am steering away from, I guess, like modern trends a lot of the time. Like there's a lot of things that I look at and I'm like, it's really nice and I really appreciate it in someone else's space. And a couple of years ago, I probably would have loved it. And now I'm just really enjoying, as I say, the thrifting elements and finding things that are just interesting. And I don't know, like this is just something that I've looked at for such a long time and I've gone, yeah, that is something I'd love to create. The other thing that I saved here is Again, if you are a very planty person, but firstly, maybe you don't have that many plants, or maybe you don't have time to look after that many plants, or whatever the reason is, having artwork on the walls that is planty, just kind of bringing a little bit more of you into that and giving the sense of greenery without giving yourself yet another thing to look after. I think that can be really effective. There's obviously, oh my God, I was on Etsy the other day looking at some artwork on there, and there are beautiful pieces on there. Also, this picture here that I saved of just like old crates with plants coming out of it, I was like, is that shelves or is that gallery wall? And I put it in the gallery wall category because, again, although yes, it is shelves, it looks so artistic that I feel like, again, that three-dimensionalness of it, I almost class that as planty art. And we'll get onto this when I go through other points that I've got on this list, but there is just something as well I find about having plants with natural materials such as wood and stuff like that, that just really, I mean, it gives your home such an earthy feel, but also just makes the plants pop a little bit more. So yeah, again, like I can see in that picture, they've got a light hanging in front. I feel like that's more of just like a design thing, but there is no reason at all that you couldn't replace that bulb with a grow light. Again, make it very functional in that sense. And then the last one that, again, I've put on the gallery wall Pinterest board, but will lead us nicely into the next one, is a propagation gallery wall. Like, I just think that looks so cool. If you're the sort of person that has loads of plants and wants to take cuttings, I think it just looks gorgeous. So let me just open up that next one. Yes, so there are so many beautiful, beautiful water propagation ideas. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hilton Carter, but I remember a while ago, I think in one of his books, I saw his propagation wall, and there's some ideas very similar to that there, but it is just covered in greenery. And again, I think all of the interesting shapes and the roots and the foliage and all of it just is very unusual and just makes such an impact. I almost feel like if you're a planty person and you don't want to add in, or like you don't fancy adding in like, what do they call them? Like feature walls, where you have like a dark wall in a room and it's like, oh, interesting. You could just do a complete feature wall of propagations. Obviously that would, if you were doing them all in water, that would probably be quite a lot to keep on top of. You probably wouldn't need to change the water, I don't know, maybe every few months. But if you'd be up for keeping on top of that, I think it looks beautiful. Again, going back to the whole like thrifting, recycling, revamping, I think using a mishmash of bottles is just very appealing to look at. I've got so many bottles that I'm always saving, like interesting things that I'm like, oh, that would make either a lovely terrarium or a lovely thing to propagate plants in. Looking at this one, just seeing some of the amber jars as well with the light passing through, I think is so pretty. And I like the fact that this way of propagating and actually kind of proudly displaying the propagations almost has a sciencey feel to it, because it is science really, isn't it? And I don't know, I always quite enjoy having my plants kind of feeling cozy and like natural and all that sort of stuff, but then also having like a little corner where it does almost look like some crazy weird science experiment. And in fact, I think in this picture here, those are probably lots of little, yeah, I think they are avocado trees starting to sprout. And I don't know about you guys, but over lockdown, I got obsessed with growing avocados from seed. And I remember thinking at the time, this is so cool. It looks like I've got this really cool science experiment. So yeah, making that part of your decor, I think, is such a clever idea. And then there's some lovely hanging propagation things here as well. Again, I know this person looks to have used kind of ones that were made for this, but there's no reason at all that you couldn't just get a nice bottle, tie some string around it and make your own hangers, propagation hangers. In fact, very similarly to how they have done in this picture here. And the reason I saved this one actually is just, again, kind of things being used for things they weren't intended to be used for. I don't know why, I quite enjoy that. But these kind of old-fashioned looking coat hangers and having plants propagating off them, again, I just feel like that is so cool. And that's something that, like, instead of putting a picture on the wall, I would put an old coat hanger and a plant. So I just think that's interesting to look at. Yeah, as you can see, I mean, as I say, I'll link this Pinterest board down below so that you can see. In fact, there's more ideas on this board that I haven't included in this video, so by all means go and check that out. But there's just some really interesting, beautiful ways that you can propagate. These ones here with the wooden bases on the wall, that's what I was saying reminds me very much of Hilton Carter. And then this one here with, in fact, there's a couple with driftwood across the top and propagations hanging down. But again, the one on the long piece of driftwood with loads hanging down, I was just imagining what that would look like if you hung it kind of close to a light source, so that you could have, I mean, maybe if you were to even kind of mix it in with some sun catchers, some little like crystally ball things and stuff, so that you could have that all reflecting off. It just feels so calming and lovely. Again, as I say, on a smaller scale on that little one just there, which again, I actually made something very similar to that when I was living back at the flats that I'm pretty sure I made a video on. And I used old spice jars, like spice jars and containers that you get with like oregano, paprika, stuff like that, rinse them out, and I used them to make a little hanger, and it looked really pretty. I just found a stick in the woods and washed it off, and yeah, it worked very effectively, and it cost me no extra money. So a lot of these are also kind of money saving tips as well, I guess. And then this is an interesting one that I stumbled across when I was putting ideas together for this video, and that's using indoor trellises in a kind of a way that I haven't really seen done before. And that's taking kind of wooden outdoor trellises, and there's obviously no reason at all why you can't use them indoors, but typically you don't see that. And again, I just love the mash of what your brain thinks of as something outdoor kind of being brought indoors. I love how people have kind of trailed vines and stuff like that. In my mind, I was like, it would also look really lovely to mix like the trailing of vines on a trellis with like perhaps some like little Polaroid photos or something like that, and kind of adding a bit of a personal touch or just little trinkets and stuff. It kind of makes it feel like, I guess, kind of like a pinboard, like an area of intention, but with lots of planty things that are also there too. But then looking at this one next, where I can see people have actually clipped pots onto this trellis, which again works really well, it looks really lovely. It's got a much neater feel doing it like that. And personally, my preference would be more for the vine trailing, kind of natural, a little bit kind of woo, not quite as neat. But I still also think that's a lovely way of doing it. And also, if you just want to kind of raise plants up a little bit, maybe without having to drill loads of individual pots into the wall, maybe just attaching a trellis and then kind of hooking things on would be a good idea. And also, I guess it just gives you lots of freedom to mix it up if you decide that you want to change one out for a different plant at another point. And then also this one here, just on a little sliver of wall, someone's put a trellis kind of going up just to separate those two spaces. And again, it's kind of like what I was saying about just training vines without a trellis, to just kind of define two different spaces and make it feel like, I don't know, make them feel connected but separate at the same time. And yeah, I really like that. I think it looks beautiful. And then I've also saved some of just plants. I mean, they're trellises or like clipboards, what do you call them? Like grid boards, which again, I've only ever seen people use, well, actually, in cabinet setups, like as backboards in cabinets, or as kind of like office decor. Like I've seen people put notes on them and kind of use them as organisers, and I think they look lovely with plants on. This one here, when someone's put one over the roof, like along that hallway, so you can just see things hanging down, is gorgeous. That's so pretty. And I've seen that done at restaurants before as well. Yeah, for example, if you have got a very narrow hallway like that one and you just want lots of greenery in there and you want to add something a bit interesting, why not put it on the ceiling? I think that's such a cool idea. But then the other, like, I put this in the trellis category because I love this, is using driftwood or twigs or just other bits of wood to train plant vines up. And I think this looks so, again, weird, wonderful, natural. I know I've been saying I've been moving away from moss poles a little bit recently, and I'd really like to add more of that naturalistic-ness to my space. Yeah, it makes me want to go out foraging for sticks, and I think I will, because I would very much like to start displaying my plants like that. When I started kind of deep diving into that and seeing loads of people kind of using, I think that's kind of driftwood, that one actually, but using things like that to grow plants on, I was like, I wonder if I could find lovely bits of wood and actually eventually use that to almost like replace the white metal of my shelves and make it feel like a completely natural kind of shelving setup. Yeah, it just kind of got my brain going, but I think it's a lovely idea. And then just some more weird and wonderful trellises. The metal ones I think have quite an industrial feel and quite like intentional but neat, I guess, like very neat, whereas the wooden ones typically I think feel a bit more kind of like you've just kind of taken a little slice out of the rainforest and stuck it on your wall, which is my personal preference, but as I say, I feel like there's something for everyone in here. The spine one I saw and I thought of Ross. I was like, he would love that. And then at the end here, there's a couple that are, they look like DIY little ladders that have been made with bamboo and string. And again, I just thought, what a lovely idea. I have been talking about my thoughts for my plant room and ideas that I've got with ladders that I want to kind of try and make at some point. And this is just another thing that I thought I could incorporate that looks beautiful and is very unusual. And then coming back to what I was saying just now about using natural materials with your plants, I wanted to focus on plant styling in bathrooms, because if you have got a window in your bathroom, I know not everyone does, I didn't for years, and to be honest, even the window I've got now may as well not be there because it provides such little natural light. But if you have got a window or are able to provide an open door that has like a good light source from the landing, for example, I would encourage you to put some more plants in your bathroom, because I think bathrooms as a whole, even if they're beautiful bathrooms, are made to be quite like wipe clean, sterile, clinical, like not cozy spaces. And again, there is just something about putting some greenery in and bringing nature into it that just softens it and makes it feel lovely, just makes it so lovely. And these top images here that I've saved, I put all of them together because I was like, they've got not only the plants, the greenery, the kind of light kind of coming through them and just making the whole room feel gorgeous, but they've also got lots of woody elements, and a lot of these bathrooms have got rugs and stuff, which is something maybe I wouldn't have thought to do in a bathroom. But just, I think the naturalness of natural fibres, wood and plants just all together really helps to make a space that feels like you want to spend time in it. And I was kind of thinking about how when me and Ross moved in here, we were like, obviously we want to make the living room cozy and we want to make our bedroom cozy, and it's so easy to put your focus into all of the other spaces and think of the bathroom as just kind of like oh no, we'll deal with that later. We tried a few weird and wonderful things in our bathroom. If you're on my Patreon, you will know the amount of times we painted it. We're still not there yet. There's still many ideas that need to be executed, but more natural materials I just think works so nicely. And there are also loads of very low light plants you can find in order to kind of style your bathroom up a little bit if you don't have much natural light in there. For example, as I say, I've got one teeny tiny little box window in my bathroom, and if you go in there even on a bright summer's day and turn the main light off, it's so dark. You couldn't read a book in there or anything. But I have got some pothos cuttings. I've got some growing in water. I've got some that I've just trained as a vine to kind of go around the shower. We scroll down, yeah, you can see lots of training vines and stuff like that. And the pothos plants that I've got in there have adapted so well to almost being in no light. Don't get me wrong, their growth has slowed down a lot, but they are growing and they do seem to be doing well in next to no light. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just focus on those ones and try and get them growing as big and as full as possible and make my bathroom feel really planty, even though I can't grow many plants in there. I think as well, something about having so much greenery in a bathroom space just kind of gives it like a natural kind of like spa aesthetic. It just feels very purposeful and it feels very right. It feels like a place you go to look after yourself, whereas a lot of the time bathroom decor doesn't typically, does it? And on the note of plant care, just because I think this is a slightly warped misconception, people always say that putting humidity loving plants in a bathroom is like the best possible thing, and like put all your ferns in the bathroom and put all your calatheas in the bathroom. And yes, that can be the case if you're having like if you have a shower every single morning and then keep your doors and windows closed to contain that humidity, then yeah, chances are your plant is going to be really happy in there. But again, I know through putting plants in bathroom spaces over the years and then being like, why is it doing so badly? If you're not able to contain that humidity, then a shower a day or a couple of showers a day is not going to be enough to consistently raise the humidity for that plant. And you're probably better off just finding a different spot for that plant, giving it a humidifier, giving it a cloche, something like that. Nonetheless though, as I say, things like ferns can make beautiful bathroom plants if you can keep that humidity contained, and they're one of my favourites to look at. If I could grow one of my ferns in the bathroom, if I had more light, I would absolutely do it. And then fun planters. I feel like I could take you through so many pictures here because I saw so many cool ones when I was researching this video. But as you guys know, I love a fun planter. I make loads of my own planters. I revamp loads of my own planters. I grow in lots of things that are not meant to be planters. And some of the ideas that people have come up with here are just incredible. There's so many teapot ones, which I thought were amazing. This vintage teapot one here, I'm pretty sure is actually tin. So I was thinking that would be a really easy way to drill drainage holes in. Equally though, if you stick your fingers down to the soil and you make sure it's actually ready for a drink, if you think there's excess water that can't drain off, I guess you can just pour it through the spout. So yeah, I thought that was a really lovely idea. I mean, household items that typically are not used for growing, like there's an old telephone there and a typewriter. I thought that was beautiful. There are so many interesting, quirky ways that are not conventional planters in order to grow your plants. And again, this is where like thrifting comes into it. Like go to your local charity shop and like there's always weird and wonderful things that you come across that you're like, oh my goodness, what's that? I found the weirdest like curvy, I don't even know what it's meant to be used for, but I guess maybe like a coin store or something, completely glass with a cork top, and I saw it and I was like, oh my god, that would make such a cool terrarium. And I got it for about £2 and I haven't done anything with it yet, but I just think it's a really awesome place to go and look and find things. I showed you guys as well my little teacups that I'm growing in. Again, that started because I found them in charity shops. You can see here as well, someone's just decorated some tins. These are probably just leftover bean tins and stuff like that. Paint them, decorate them, revamp them. Like there's so many cool things that you can do in order to add interest to your collection. And like, I don't know, I think because we get so used to seeing our own plants all the time, it's so easy to overlook things that actually, I don't know, might like just add to the whole aesthetic and bring interest and quirkiness to your collection. And that is something that I really, really enjoy. I've said it before, but often if I've got a plant that I'm not loving, or like I'm like, I like it, but I'm just not sure about it, sometimes just changing up the pot can be enough to make me go, oh, you know what, I actually really like the look of it now. And of course you can buy planters new, of course you can, but there's also so many other options. And when everyone's buying everything new, I think it's trendy to go and thrift. But yeah, I had so many other points that I could have covered in this video. I was like, is this one that's going to go down well? If it goes down well, and if you like it, let me know in the comments. I will happily make more like this. I've got so many Pinterest boards that I could take you through. But yeah, also let me know down in the comments below what some of your favourite plant trends are, things that you do that make your collection look lovely, things that you've discovered, things that you've seen that other people have done. Let me know. But yes, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.